Hello friends, uh, today we are going to use the example of the Redux Thunk. So we will start with Redux Thunk and we will implement the Redux Thunk inside our project. This is a small project in which we have 4 routes here: home, login, users and employee. And there is one counter here on the home page using the simple Redux. Okay, in the earlier tutorial we have discussed to integrate how to integrate the simple Redux in your React application, and we had just created the counter here. Okay, so the counter is working, and we have second page login, which is just for demo, and the third page is users, which is using a API to get this users record. Okay, so pagination is also working with this API. Okay, and the employee is the next one, which is using the same data and the same code of the user. Means the user page and employee page is using the same code base. Okay, so both are same, but we have created here. You can see in the project we have created employee page separately, but the code inside this employee page is similar to the users. So here what we have to do, we will have to take out this fetch, and we have to just using the API inside the each component, if it is the users or it is the employee. So we will take out the fetch from all these two files and these two components, and we will take this to the separate, and we will use the Redux Thunk to manage these API calls, asynchronous calls, and we will use that API inside this component and apply component as well using the help of Redux. So this is the basic simple, and you can see that in the store we have just two counter here, which counter 2 and counter 2, and we are just combining that it is a counter 1 and counter 2, and we are just using this counter in the home. So you can see we have just used this count, counter and counter 2, and we are using the count, printing the count to here, and we are just using the dispatchable methods here, increment 2 and decrement 2, and we have just used the HOC connect to create a new component from this component. Okay, so our next step is to implement the Redux Thunk. Okay, so Redux Thunk is basically used to manage the asynchronous things like set timeout, interval, or API calls. You can manage easily with the Redux Thunk. Okay, so Redux Thunk is just basic. You cannot uh, keep more control on that API calls or something, but there is also one thing called the Redux Saga, which is the alternative to Redux, but sorry, to Thunk, but is more controllable than Redux Thunk. Okay, so we will discuss in the later videos about Redux Saga and its example. In this tutorial, we will only discuss on the Redux Thunk. Okay, so we will start with the installing our Redux Thunk. Okay, so I will install the npm install Redux Thunk. Okay, let them install. Okay, so our next step is to import the Thunk here from the library. Import Thunk from Redux Thunk. Okay, so you will get the Thunk from the Redux Thunk, and now you will have to use the middleware from the Redux. So here you will get apply middleware, and you will go to use this apply middleware, here. Okay, inside the create store. Okay, so after that you can pass like apply middleware, and you will just pass the thunk here. So the integration of thunk is completed. You have you first you have just installed the Redux thunk, and then you have just used this thunk as a middleware inside the store. Okay, so you have just implemented this one. So now the second thing is how to architecture your project so that you can create the separate asynchronous calls and separate actions and action types separately, and you will just have to write reducers separately, because in this example we have just created all the reducers here. So for that we will create the folder architecture here as well. For that first we will have action type. Okay, here we will define all the action types in this folder. So now we will have the file name. Let's suppose we are using for the users, so we will have users.tsx. Okay, so here we will define export constant, and whatever the name you will have to give, like get user, I'm giving it here, get users. Okay, and you will have to define the unique action name here. Okay, similarly if you want to add more actions here for the users related, like add users, add user. Okay, get by id, something like that, you can add it here. Okay, now your next work is to add actions using this action types. Okay, so you have to just create another folder called actions, and for users we will create the users.tsx file, and here we will export constant, and we will define the method get users. Okay, and here we will pass, and here we will pass return and type, action type. So we have the action type like get users, and if you want to have some payload you can write it here, otherwise leave it blank. Okay, so get users will have will require payload. Okay, so the payload will be the, let's suppose, data, whatever the data will be provided as a parameter. You can define it here. So now your action is completed, get users. Similarly you can create add user, delete user, something, whatever you will require. I'm just creating one for example here. Okay, now our third folder will be asynchronous actions for users. Okay, so I'm just creating async actions. Okay, and inside that I will created users related file, so that all async operations for users will be here. Okay, so here what we will have to do, export instant get user. Okay, and what you can do, you can define async type and dispatch parameter, dispatch, and then after you will write return, sorry, await, and you will write the fetch. So we have the fetch there, so we will just copy from the user. Okay, so we will get this one to here. Okay, so we don't need these two. Okay, we will have to get the page number here. So this is the page number parameter, suppose number, and will have this to dispatch. Let's suppose after success, you can create multiple different dispatch regarding the success and failure for this response. I'm just creating one for example. So we have created the action get users from the actions. So we will have to just import from the actions whatever you name get users. You can name it as action here as well. Okay, so you can easily track them. Okay, from actions users, and you will pass the response. So what was our response in the page? So response.data will be the result. Okay, and this is the dispatch. So parameter having, so this can be any type. You can define it at any type. Okay, so your one dispatchable method is complete, which is called get users, and it will get the parameter page number, and it will be the return type will be the dispatchable, which will call this API call, and the API is success, then it will dispatch this to the reducer. Okay, this action. So this basically this method is returning some data with the type and payload. Payload what is the thing you will pass from it here, and that type will be go to the reducer. Okay, so we will have a reducer here. So we will create a reducer for the user. So we will have a new folder called reducers, and here I will define users.tsx, and here we will have a reducer constant. I will just copy from this reducer so that we will take less time. Okay, so we will have a reducer, and here we will use a port called user, and state will be any, and initial state will be empty array. Okay, so here what will have to action get users. Okay, and here you can add use another like add users, add user. So I'm returning this one, and here you will get from the action dot payload. So you will get the result in this array, state array. Okay. So this in this we are not using, so we are just returning the state here. Okay. You will have to write your own logic accordingly. So we are just using this get users, and whatever the payload will be there from the API, we will have to set this in the state. Okay, so we have the users here, and we will just copy this one and store, and we will use inside the combined reducer, and this will be the users. Okay, so we will have to use it from the reducer. Okay, so we have done with all that. Now our work is to call this async actions inside our component users. Okay, so what we will do, we will go to the page users, and here we will comment this one, and we will call that one here. Okay, so that is the dispatchable item. So you have to add that dispatchable methods get users from that async actions inside your this component props. Okay, so for that you have to use the connect connect HOC, okay, from the React Redux, and you will just pass this component, and here we will use the state. So we will create the function. Let's suppose map state to props, okay, and here it will return whatever you will have to return from the state. So you will get all the state here, and from that state I will need users, and state from state dot users. We will get the users inside this key user, okay, users. And the second one is to pass the what is the thing you have to pass? You have to pass dispatchable dispatch to props. You have to map all the dispatch to your props. Okay, so you will have the get users from the async USCRS get users from the async actions. Okay, and now you will have to pass these two state and dispatchable items here, so that disconnect HOC will easily convert your this component into another component with these two props, attaching these props inside your props. Okay, now you will get the user and this method inside your props. So you will have to call like props dot get users, and you will have to pass the parameter page number. So we are getting the page number here, and another work is to bind the props users. So we are going to use the props dot users. Okay, so we are not using this user state. Okay, so now we are using the Redux store users here. Okay, similarly you can see on the page employee we have the same fetch. So we are just commenting this out, and we will just copy this one, these all to this employee, so that we can test easily. PNP, and we will import the connect from the React Redux, and we will have get users. Similarly, you will have props dot users here, and we will just comment it out. We will not going to call the get users here, just to show that we can use the data from the Redux store. So we don't need this one right now. So you can delete this one as well for now, because we are not using that method. Okay, so now you can see if there any error, no issues found, so it's compiled successfully. You can go to the browser and check on the employee. You can see on the employee we don't have any record because we don't have called the get users API. Okay, so what I want to test that if I will go to the page users, it will get all the users details, and then after if I will go to the employee, then it should get the data from the Redux store. Okay, so now I will go to the users. You can see we have got the data. Okay, now what we have to do, now we will go to the page EMP. Okay, so you can see this is the EMP page, and you are getting the response. If you do the reload, you will not get the data because it is not getting data by itself. Okay, it's getting the data from the store. Okay, so now both are same. If you will reload the users, you will get the data because users is using the get users asynchronous API call. But in EMP, this is dependent on the Redux store data. Okay, so I think we have done with the Redux Thunk. Okay, so in summary, I can let you know that what we have done. Okay, so what we have did that we have earlier we have a users and employee page similar, and we were using that similar code, and we were using the fetch data users data on this call. Okay, so what we have implemented the Redux Thunk to separate this API from the component to the Redux store, so that this API call response will be stored in the Redux store, and another component will be able to use them. Okay, so we have separated this to another page called async actions. So for that architecture, we have just created the four folders: actions, action types, async actions, and one reducers. So first we have just created the action type. What will be the name of the action? So it should be unique. Okay, it should be unique. So we will have to create separately like that. Get users, add users. These are all the actions types. And then we have created the actions called whatever the you will require. You will name it like users actions, and it will return just type whatever the type you want to pass, and the payload whatever the data you will get from this method. Okay, now the third is to call the API. So we have the async actions, and inside the async actions we have created the method get user with the parameter page number, and we have the dispatchable item here fetch, and inside the fetch response we will, if the response will be success, then we will have to pass this dispatch to the reducer. So with the help of this dispatchable, we will just pass this whatever the result of this method. The result of this method will be the this one or this object. So payload will be the response and data, and you will get it inside the reducer. So inside the reducer we have the users TSX, so it will get match with the action type. The action type is, it will be the get user, so it will set the data from the payload into the state, and the state is empty array at initial, and we have the users in the combined reduction. Okay, so we have created the store, and this store is provided on the app. You can see it here. This state is this storage provided on the whole app. Okay, so that all the components in the root tree component will get the store data. Okay, so this is the example of the Redux Thunk. In next coming videos, we will discuss about the Redux Saga and how it is different from the Redux Thunk, and what are the benefits using between the Saga and the Thunk. Okay. Okay. Thanks.